Hello, fellow Crusaders, and welcome to our end of list. My name is Sean Wasker. As always, is Brian Michaels. You've seen Most Disappointed. You've seen Disappointing, as Brian corrected me last night. You've seen Most Surprising. Now we are at the worst films of 2024. We're gonna preface this. We're gonna preface two things, like we do in every worst of list. One, we don't actively go out and try to find the worst fucking films of the year to watch. We actively try to avoid them, me more so than Brian. So if there's movies, and I said this last year, and I'm going to say it again this year, neither one of us, unless you did, and you snuck it behind me without me realizing, neither one of us saw Blood and Honey 2. We didn't see Blood and Honey. Yeah, we never saw it last year. So for people who are expecting that to pop up, it's not, because we don't want to watch that crap. So I'm sure that there is 10 to 20 plus way worse films that are on our list than what we're not mentioning. But we probably just didn't watch those movies. So these are strictly just the movies that Brian and I watched this year. And Brian has watched the way worse ones than probably I have watched, because he likes to watch random, like, straight streaming movies and stuff like that. Preface number 2. Because these are the worst, we probably have only watched these one time, and they might have been early in the year. So while
did our best to forget about them.
Exactly. We might not have a whole lot to say about these movies because they're the worst. So if you're looking for a deep dive on some of these films, you may get some, but on others, you may not. Because I'm looking at one of them on my list right now, and I'm like, I am having a hard time trying to even remember this movie. I just know it's in my bottom 10 because of the score I gave it, but I can't remember a single second of this movie because it was a January film. I can't remember it. So I'm just getting that stuff out of the way. Now, Brian and I were both kind of in agreement with this year. We both kind of said this has kind of been the year of kind of mediocre. Yeah, nothing outside of like a handful of movies are outright just fucking awful. A lot of them, like I think you and I were trying to come up with like our bottom 5 for the top 10. We're like, they're not good. I don't consider them like the worst fucking films of the year, but these are my bottom 10. You kind of feel that same way?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of not good films in here, but I mean, only a few of them are like actively bad. Most of them were just like really, really unimpressive, or I didn't like them, but there are movies that I have on here that other people loved, and I'm just like, these are just if you want to call my 10 least favorite, sure, but there's definitely some bad movies out there.
Yeah, my bottom 5 are definitely dog shit films. 6 through 10, I didn't actively hate them. They're just my lowest scores. Going into that, why don't we kick it off with you, Brian? What is your number 10 worst film of the year that you saw?
Well, one thing I do want to say, one more preface for me, is that I also tried to weed out some of the super obscure movies, because like you said, I tend to watch a lot of stuff that goes straight to VOD and things like that. Most of it because like I have not heard the bad reviews yet. I just go out of them out of curiosity, and then it turns out they suck. But I'm not going to include most of those in my top 10 list. There's some slightly obscure ones, but they're at least ones I saw in a theater. But just a few of them. There was the Killer Kangaroo zombie movie called Rippy. That sucked. Great premise. Come on. Zombie kangaroos, that's all you need. That sucked. There's a movie called Riddle of Fire, which actually would have been probably one of my 3 worst films of the year. I think I included in my half year just because I needed.
It was your number. I think it was your number 2 during the half year.
And it's got all this praise for being like this, like kind of a modern fairy tale, and this whole thing. It's like that one completely unimpressed me. There were some other movies called like one of the Platform 2, which was made for, was it Hulu or something? No, Netflix.
No, Platform's Netflix.
No, it was Netflix. I like the first one. That one was like really disappointing. But I'm just saying I left off that kind of stuff. So the 10 movies I have on my list are movies that I saw in a theater. A few of them are a little bit more obscure, but most of them you probably at least heard of. Gotcha. So starting with my number 10 then. Yep. My number 10 is a movie that barely got a theatrical release. It is a movie called Skincare. And this is a movie that stars Elizabeth Banks. At first I thought it was going to be some kind of like a thriller movie, almost kind of like what Substance I think was.
Didn't this come out right around the same time?
It came out a little bit earlier than Substance, but
Okay.
it came out a super, super limited release. It was only in theaters for like a week or two.
Gotcha.
But this is a movie with Elizabeth Banks is basically playing this cosmetics. She owns this like store where like they do cosmetics and you know, health and beauty kind of stuff. And then somebody moves in across the street from her with a competing one, and it becomes this whole thing. And she thinks that they're trying to sabotage her. And I couldn't even tell you most of this movie. I have forgotten most of the plot of the movie. I will say it had Elizabeth Banks in it, who's always reliable. Lewis Pullman is in it. We always like Lewis Pullman around here. Nathan Fillion shows up in a small role in it. But it's just a movie that just like bored the shit out of me. And it's one of those movies that by the time I got to the end, I just didn't even care how it ended as long as it ended.
Yeah, I remember seeing the trailer for it, and I like Elizabeth Banks and Nathan Fillion and Lewis Pullman, but it was just like this. I felt like I was like, aren't we doing like The Substance? Like, isn't this like? It felt like the same thing.
It's The Substance without the supernatural angle. It's The Substance basically just in terms of like the tone of it and kind of like it's kind of this almost kind of a thriller to it. And I will say this like we were talking about earlier, this is the bottom one of my list. It actually gave it this one 2.5 stars. It's like my last 2.5 star before it's 2 stars. So I didn't completely hate the movie because like I liked the people in it. It's just the story for me.
Gotcha. My number 10 is a Netflix film that I watched. I want to say it was last month. It was one of those.
Netflix films are always great, though. What are you talking about?
Yeah. I've got a lot of my movies. Actually, let me backpedal real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I just realized while you're thinking of that, I just realized what would probably be my worst movie. Didn't make my list because I tapped out after a half hour, and I'm curious if you ever finished it. So we'll have to see at the end of the list.
Oh, I already know what the movie is, and yes, it's on this list.
Okay.
Because I did finish it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
4 out of my top 10 are theatrical, and the other 6 are streaming. Okay. So yeah. But going to my top 10 or my number 10, this was a Netflix film that Kimberly and I watched, and we were intrigued by it. And that was Subservience with Megan Fox.
Oh, I did. I meant to watch that one. I guess I'm glad I did.
Yeah. It's eh. I mean, you got Megan Fox basically. It's basically like iRobot. It's literally iRobot, but instead of them looking like robots, they look like humanoids. And Megan Fox is basically this humanoid that it kind of follows his father with a probably like a 7-year-old kid. And they kind of make you think for about the first act of the film that the mom dies. So he's buying this robot like maid to kind of like take care of the kid, you know, help around the house, you know, make sure she's say what? Yeah, an adult version of the movie Megan, basically, is what Kimberly's saying. But then you find out that like, oh no, she's just in the hospital. She needs to have like heart surgery or something. They literally make you feel like she died in the first act. But yeah, basically Megan Fox is this robot. You know, she follows all the rules. She does what she's told, and she's supposed to be like this smart bot that kind of like gets smarter as she goes. And then at some point, she talks the guy into flipping like a reboot switch on her, which allows her to kind of rewrite her core rules. And then she basically decides, I'm going to be your wife. And it starts to become like this, you know.
It's the hand that rocks the cradle.
It basically is hand that rocks the cradle. And like, it's like you think you've seen this movie before and you kind of know where they're going to go with it, but they never fully ever want to pull the trigger on it. It's like they held back because they felt like if they actually went with what they should do, then it's like, oh, then people have seen this movie before. But by not doing that, it made the movie feel less than. The lead actor in it who plays the husband, I think it's Michelle Marone. Dude, bland as shit. Super fucking bland. So many times he's delivering these lines, and case in point, for anyone who wants to know this guy's biography, he did those 365-day movies, and we all know how great those films were. Those things, you know, class act films. But he's not a good actor. I mean, he's just a pretty boy, and there's like one particular scene where like he's in the bathroom and Megan Fox like gets on top of him. and she like changes her voice to sound like his wife. She blindfolds him, and he's like, "No, stop, don't,
No, please,
I can't do this." It's just like, come on, it's very unbelievable. I don't blame Megan Fox.
It's hard to say no.
anything.
Megan Fox is grinding on you. Just
well, that too. But I don't blame Megan Fox for anything she's doing in the movie. She's doing exactly what she's supposed to be doing, acting very robotic with very, very, very little emotional, going through, which is her wheelhouse, basically. None of this is her fault. The script is lacking. The script is lame. The acting around her is very bad as well. And by the time the movie just ended, you were just like, all right. I mean, it is what it is. Like I said, it's not the worst film. It just was. It could have been so much more. And I feel like if it actually had gone the way that we've seen it gone many times before, because she's a robot, I feel like it could have added an extra element of it. Because you think, oh, she's going to try to take out the wife, or she's going to try to do some of this, and she never really does that. So it's very tame, and it never wants to fully go all the way with it. So that was my number 10.
My number 9 is, I think I talked about this in my most disappointed movies, and this is the 4:30 movie. Kevin Smith's.
You have it out for this fucking film.
Well, and I mean, it's number 9. There's 8 films I have worse than this, not counting all the obscure shit. This is just a movie. Again, I wanted to like this movie, so I definitely didn't go in with the intent to hate it. But this just wasn't anything funny in the movie. I don't think I laughed much at all. I think that his daughter's boyfriend is trying to turn into a star, Austin Zazier, whatever his name is, he can't carry a movie.
Is this the lead?
Yes.
Did you watch How I Met Your Mother?
Yes.
Does he not look like a young Ted Mosby?
Yes.
Every time I see promos for him, it's like, that's basically Ted. He's basically Ted Mosby. Yeah.
And I've seen this guy do like little supporting roles in movies, and he's fine, but he can't carry a movie especially like this, especially when it's supposed to be showing in kind of emotion or anything like that. And a part of the problem with this, besides the fact that it wasn't funny, was kind of the tone of it, because like at times it's trying to be like more like it's chasing Amy, which kind of serious. It's his attempt to make a real movie, and other times he's doing like this, his broad kind of dick and fart jokes that he did in some of his earlier films. And then there's times when like Ken Jeong and Justin Long have roles in this movie, and they're just playing them so broad and comical, like they're in a whole different movie, and they're not funny either. And
is
so
Justin Long playing his normal character, or is he playing something completely new?
No, it's something new. He's got this weird like buck teeth. He's kind of talking funny. It's
okay, so he's not playing the gay porno guy.
No, he's not doing that again. No.
Okay. No, I actually love that character. I actually do love that character.
This is the movie. It's the problem is that this movie thinks it's like so. He's like, oh, this is like bringing back to my childhood, and this is such a seminal movie, and I love this. And it's like, no, it's not a good movie. It's not a funny movie. It's not a well-made movie. It's barely 80 minutes long without the credits, so it's super short. So not much happens either. And it was just disappointing.
My number 9 is a movie. I think it was on Prime way early in the year, like February, March. And that is a movie called Role Play. It stars oh god, blank on our name all of a sudden. I just went blank. Kylie Kuko, so Scott David, is Aluwu?
David Oyelowo.
I never say his fucking name right.
Oyelowo.
And basically, once again, it's not a story that we haven't seen done many times before. You got, this married couple with kid, living kind of the suburban life, and then you realize, oh wait, one of the husband or wives is a former assassin or a former spy or something like that. In this case, it's Kylie Kuko. And basically, she goes on a mission, and things go awry. And it kind of basically causes her to have to unveil who she really is to her husband and her family that she's been keeping hidden all this time. Once again, nothing is actively bad about this movie. It's just been done way better 1,000 times over. And this doesn't bring anything new to the table. It just feels like a beginner's template of let's see how these actors and this director can do with a very basic, simplistic story. But the problem is that these aren't simplistic actors who have just started out. This isn't like a director who's been, just coming into, starting on his own. So it's like it feels like that's what they're doing here, and this is not that kind of film. These are all seasoned actors. These are all people who have been doing this for a while. So why are we doing this recycled story without adding anything very new to the elements? Like I said, nothing is actively bad about the film. It's just, it is what it is. And it's a very, very thin layer of 20 films who's done it better before.
All right, my next one also won't be on Sean's list. I expect very little overlap on it. I think we're gonna have like 3 of the same movies, maybe.
Well, that's because you watch so many different things than me. But yeah,
that's actually, we watch a lot of different stuff, especially when it comes to like which ones we're willing to give a shot that look like they might not be good. So, the next one I saw was another one I thought might be good. I actually got a chance to see this at like one of those AMC early unseen screenings, and it was called Out of Darkness. And this one I actually was curious about because it's basically was advertised as like a horror movie in like prehistoric times, like I don't know, Cro-Magnon, Neanderthal, whatever they were. And I'm like, okay, it's something we haven't really seen before. It's a new concept. You know, obviously they aren't going to speak English unless they just have like them doing it like it's translated or something. But I'm like, okay, I kind of like the vibes of the trailer. And so I went and saw this, and the movie started out, and I'm like, okay, I like the look of it. I like kind of the setting they've created, but then it just didn't go anywhere. It was super slow. It was monotonous. It was basically just watching these, you know, people living their lives. And then like once in a while something spooky would happen, and then they try to act like it's all supernatural, but of course by the time we get to the end, it's like even that's taken away from you. So it's just like, are we just watching, you know, a week in the life of Cro-Magnon? I don't know what we're supposed to be super excited about. And I was mostly just trying to stay awake in this movie. It was disappointing.
Yeah, this was on your half year as well.
And
so I remember you talking about this. My number 8 is another Amazon Prime movie and came out earlier in the year. And this one, this should be lower. But the second half kind of won me over.
What, lower on your worst list, like it's a better movie, or lower like it should
be? No,
be
like it should be way worse.
Okay, gotcha.
Because the first half of this film is borderline unwatchable, and I almost stopped it. And you know me, I don't stop movies once I've started them. But the second half at least got a little more enjoyable and won me over, and that's why it lands at the number 8, and that is The Underdogs. Basically, Snoop Dogg's version of the Mighty Ducks / Hardball / Bad News Bears / you know where I'm going.
With Ice Cube? Didn't he do one?
Ice Cube?
Long Shots?
Yeah, Long Shots. That was another one. Basically, Snoop Dogg's basically kind of playing like an Odell Beckham, Randy Moss kind of character. He's like a Hall of Fame caliber wide receiver, but his ego's so fucking bad that no one wants to talk to him. No one wants to do anything with him. And because of that, he's not getting the recognition that he deserves. He blows his money on stuff that he shouldn't be doing. And basically, I think he gets done doing like a radio or a podcast with, oh God, it was some football player. I'm blanking on now because it's been so long. And he basically gets into a accident. And so he has to do community service, which is he has to coach a Pee-wee football team. Problem is that every dialogue in this movie for the first half is rough as shit because Snoop Dogg is not an actor. I don't know why they keep trying to make him an actor. He's just fucking not. So it's just Snoop Dogg cussing and slanging the whole way through. Then you get to the kids, and they're doing it just as bad, just as rough as he is. And it's just them bullshitting for the first hour of this movie until they actually start playing football and you start developing the relationship between Snoop Dogg and the kids. Basically, they start fucking Mighty Ducksing it or hardballing it. And then it's like, okay, I'm not hating this anymore. It's still not good, but I'm at least, I guess, kind of enjoying what I'm watching now. I'm not like
then you get into the kind of underdog sports aspect of it, not so much the bad characters and acting.
Exactly. So this movie could have easily been in my top 5. But the last half of the film, when it actually started doing the underdog sports, it kept it to go up a little higher. So it's still in my top 10, but it could have been so much lower because that first 45 minutes to an hour was rough to get through. But yeah, it's on Prime. Not that you guys should watch it, but it's on Prime.
My next one is another horror film, which I think half of my list is right now. And this is another one I watched at a screening because it looked cool. It looked like a new twist on horror, something we hadn't seen before. And that is In a Violent Nature. In a Violent Nature basically is told kind of in first person, I guess third person. You're walking behind. So you're basically following around this killer as he's going around like murdering everybody at that's at this cabin. And it sounds like a cool idea. I mean, it sounds like it'd be cool. Everyone's described it as like it's like you're watching a video game, and it kind of is. Except the problem is, it's just like video games that you spend 80% of your time walking. Like, I killed somebody here. Now we're gonna follow him walking across this field and through the forest and down the hill and around the bend up to the cabin.
It's like when you're playing Red Dead or Grand Theft Auto, and you have to walk like 300 like meters or miles to get to the next goal, but you don't have a horse and you don't have a car, so you just have to walk the whole fucking way. And you're just like,
this movie lets you watch that in real time, just like, and then just half the sound effects of the movie, just him walking. And it's like, it's kind of a cool idea, except that it does become so slow. It does become so monotonous. And you're like, okay, I know it can't just be constant kills, and I know we're trying to be from his point of view, so not a whole lot else can happen, but it's like, it just drags everything down so slowly. Now there are some really cool kills in here, which is the reason it didn't rank even higher. There's one they refer to as the yoga kill. If you want to just go look up that one, save yourself watching the movie. Look up the yoga kill from this movie.
Yoga or yogurt?
Yoga.
Okay.
Because it's nice and brutal and violent, and it's also hilarious. I mean, the crowd I was watching with was all laughing their asses off, and I think you're supposed to. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous. But I mean, so it has some enjoyable moments in it. The problem is that those are spread out so few and far between, and there's so much just watching him walk in real time that it just becomes painful to get to the end of this one.
Yeah,
I remember at the ending, like the very last scene, there's like this lady who hasn't been the rest of the movie, who basically gives this long 5-minute monologue, which has nothing to do with the movie, and then it ends. It's like the ending was the biggest head scratcher of all.
Is she monologuing the killer since it's supposed to be from his perspective?
No, she at that point where she's monologuing to a survivor.
So where's the killer at this point?
I'll get to the woods somewhere.
So the movie
him at that point, yeah.
Okay, so the movie broke its own rule in the last.
With our occasional times, it's not 100% behind the guy, but it's like 90% of the time you're following the guy.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, is it like Birdman where it broke its rule in the last like 5 minutes? You're like, why'd you do that, man? It's like you were doing so well, and then you ruined it.
And again, before people all correct me, I'm like you said earlier, we're doing this off of memory because I never looked back at this movie again.
Yeah. My number 7, we both watched. It's on Netflix, and this is one of those where I think we watched the trailer knowing that it was going to be bad, but we were just hoping that we'd be wrong and that it actually might be good, and that's Unfrosted.
That was my next one.
Oh, so this is your number 7 or 6?
Yeah, 6.
Yeah. Okay, so you're 6, my 7. And I guess we could just both double team this. I am not the biggest Jerry Seinfeld fan. I was never a Seinfeld fan. I was in the Friends group, not the Seinfeld group. He just never has really done much for me that I found funny. But this has got a fantastic cast of people in it. And you can, and the one thing I will give this movie, you can tell everyone's having fun. Everyone is having a blast shooting this movie, which is why I didn't like walk through this whole movie going, oh my God, I fucking hate this film. It was just like, you know what? This is not good, but they're having fun. So I'm a little more open to it because I can see the effort being brought in. It's not good, but they're at least trying. But basically this whole film is about like the birth of like Pop-Tarts. That's literally what this film is. I mean, the cast is a mile long of people. Now, some of them are just playing Cameo the movie, where it's like, hey, you remember this celebrity that was big around this time? Here's this actor playing this. Close up, freeze frame. You see who he is? Got it. Check mark. Go to the next one. Go to the next one. Go to the next one. But when the movie actually does start to stop doing that and focus on the actual plot and the story of the film, it's actually, okay, I guess. If you want to, that's, but like I said, because I see the effort in what they're trying to do, I can't outright brutally destroy it like I will on movies that I'm going to be talking about later. but it definitely isn't good. It's not. But there are some people in the film who are actively like, I was like, they're trying their damnedest. But yeah, this was yours also, so go ahead.
Well, the problem with this movie for me is that it's another one that, okay, we heard the concept of it, and I'm like, okay, this could be fun. I mean, Jerry Seinfeld hadn't really done a movie before, except for if you want to count like, when animation we did B-movie. And so I'm like, okay, Jerry Seinfeld has been gone from TV for a long time. He wants to do this movie. He's going to bring along this great cast of comedians and actors who love to work with him, even if it's just for a cameo. And they're basically taking on kind of this current trend of the, product behind the scenes movies, whether it be Air or Tetris or some of those movies. It's kind of like, I know, not really a spoof of it, but it's kind of a comedic take on that kind of thing. And we're like, okay, it's gonna be fun, especially when Pop-Tarts. What are you gonna do about Pop-Tarts? And so it's like the idea of it's okay. It's like you said, once they're kind of focusing on the plot of it, which is obviously not the real birth of Pop-Tarts. It's a whole fictionalized, just comedic thing.
Yeah.
Parts of that, you can see the seeds of what could have been funny. And I think I've heard it would. I think this movie would have made a good 5-10 minute sketch on Funny or Die or something like that, or an SNL sketch or something like that. But the problem is, it's what, an hour and 45-minute movie or whatever it is, and the jokes are constant. I mean, it's one after another, just like throwing jokes at the wall, hoping something sticks. And the problem is, like, maybe one
that literally is what this movie is in a nutshell. Is them basically taking a machine gun of jokes and shooting it at a target 50 fucking miles away, hoping one lands.
Yeah, I think probably about 3 total landed for me as far as jokes. It just was not good. And so it's one of those movies, like, you hate to see the waste of talent. And you wonder how many people like agreed to be in it, and even they were like, this is fucking stupid, but it's Jerry Seinfeld movie, I guess I'll do it. Or if they thought it was good at the time, I don't know. But all I know is that even the people I liked weren't funny in this movie, but I don't blame them. I blame, the writers, who I assume is Jerry Seinfeld, and probably a co-writer, maybe he had one of them, but it's like, yeah, this was not good at all. And this one, especially because of the cast, I'm like, even if I don't love it, it'll still be fun, right? No, it was a chore to sit through.
I will say this, and because you actually wrote this in your Letterboxd review, it's this year's Fool's Paradise.
Yes.
But I would still give it the nod over Fool's Paradise.
It'd be close, but I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that was my 7, your 6. So I'll go back to me. My number 6 is the one that I mentioned earlier, where I literally can't remember a single goddamn thing about it. I just remember I didn't like it, and that was like one of the first January horror films of the year, and that was Night Swim.
Which is odd because you hate the lead. I didn't even see it.
Yeah, I don't hate the lead.
Oh wait, am I thinking of the wrong movie?
Go ahead. No, Wyatt Russell, Kerry Condon.
Oh, Night Swim. I was thinking, is it the Night House? I think that has Rebecca Hall in it. That's like last year.
Yeah, I was like, you think about the Rebecca Hall one? Because I definitely didn't watch that.
I think that was called like Night House. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I was like, I definitely didn't watch that one. Yeah, well, I mean, there's not much to say. I don't remember this fucking movie. I just know that it's incredibly bland, and much like Subservience, it has the ability to go all in on this stuff. There are moments I remember in this movie where it's like, you know what? If you actually just fucking went for this and didn't do we kind of still want to be PG-13, so we're not going to go all the way, then you could have done something to be a little bit memorable. It wouldn't have probably made your movie any better, but it definitely would have made it more going, hey, you know what? At least they're fucking going for it. Much like Terrifier did, when it first started. It was like, hey, this movie's not great. It's written poorly, but at least they're fucking trying something with it. Night Swim is not trying anything. They are doing the bare minimum to be a January horror film while still being PG-13 so they can get the younger audiences in there. And I love Kerry Condon, mainly from, was it Beast of Inisherin? And then, of course, Wyatt Russell I love as well. But they are just poorly put in this film, and I just felt bad for them both to have to sign on to this movie. Hopefully, they both got 2 big movies coming out next year. So here's hoping they can, swim away from this as fast as possible. But yeah, I really can't add anything else to it because I don't remember this fucking movie. Yeah.
My next one I don't remember a whole lot about, and this is a December entry to my list, so that's how quickly it's mostly left my mind. This is a movie I did see in the theater. It's called Getaway. It stars Nick Frost. I don't think anybody else I've never heard of anyone else in this movie.
We talked about this movie. I think it was during our fall preview. Because we didn't know if it was actually going to get released.
Yeah, well, Nick Frost. I was looking. Nick Frost came out in 6 movies this year. Now, some of them I think were just small parts, and I think this might be the only one that actually went to any theaters.
And he's in Skeleton Crew.
Yeah, and he's in Skeleton Crew. So he's having a big year. I mean, not big movies, but he's been pumping things out.
Okay, so answer this for me, because I remember we were discussing this, and we didn't know much about this movie during the fall preview. We said if he was the serial killer, this was going to be interesting. If he's not the serial killer, it's going to be lame. Is he the serial killer, or is he not the serial killer?
It's not even a serial killer.
I thought it was.
Well, no, there's a thing going on. It's basically this family. He's the father of the family. By the way, Nick Frost also wrote this. He didn't direct it. It was directed by this guy named Stefan Hars, who also directed one of his other movies that came out this year called Crazy House, which that one's fucking weird. It's like looks like a sitcom. It's like him and Lisa Silverstone as the parents, and then all of a sudden turns into like a home invasion movie, and it's fucking weird. If you're gonna check out one of them, check that one out. But this one, directed by the same guy, written by Nick Frost. It's this family goes on this vacation, and they go to I don't know, it's Sweden, Norway, some Scandinavian country. I want to say it's Sweden, and they're going to go to this very secluded island. But the problem is they're showing up during the annual festival that celebrates this horrible massacre that occurred there, 200 years earlier, 100 years earlier, whatever it was. But they're like, no, we still want to come here on vacation. We know what's going on. We're fine. We're going to stay here. And all the locals hate them and want them out. And then this violence starts erupting, but it's not like a serial killer. It's like just something's going on. But the movie, it just is way too much of that kind of, the Swedish horror films, or even the Swedish films in general, kind of those things where they're very bland, they're very dreary, they're very dry. And it's like Nick Frost, once in a while tries to put a little bit of his humor in it and stuff like that, but it's definitely not a comedy at all. And so the whole thing just kind of feels weird because it feels like he doesn't fit in this movie, and the movie's tone is just kind of boring me. And then by the end, there are twists and turns to it, but it's just like, I didn't care for it.
Okay, so based off of what you're describing, it sounds a lot like Speak No Evil to a point.
I suppose a little bit. Yeah, but it's more like it's basically they go to this place and the entire island is against them because they're outsiders, and the whole festival is about how these outsiders had come and gotten, and when the people who lived there finally slaughtered these people who were trying to invade their island, and it's a whole thing.
So I remember you and I were both so intrigued by this when we first heard about it. I was like, this could be good. Apparently not.
Well, it's like, hey, it's a horror movie, Nick Frost, and I think we knew at the time that he wrote it too. I'm like, this is worth checking out. And so when it showed up, I never saw a preview or anything for it. I saw it in the listings for my movies that were coming out this weekend at my theater. I'm like, I guess I'll go check it out. And
yeah, I didn't even know this movie came out. I thought it was one of those we don't know if this is coming out this year, but we're going to talk about it.
I doubt it came out by you because it barely came out by me. And
I don't. It wasn't until you started talking about it, I was like, oh yeah, this movie. So number 5 is another one that came out in December, and I talked about this during our Christmas episode, a very Movie Crusaders Christmas, guys, which is out right now. You guys should give it a watch. I briefly went over it, talking about that there are bad movies out there around Christmas time, and there are Hallmark movies. And Netflix, for some reason, is like, let's do our own kind of Hallmark movies. And I wasted my time watching this one, and I really wish I had the 90 to 100 minutes back, and that's Hot Frosty. The only reason why I put myself through this fucking torture is because I'm a big fan of Dustin Milligan. Many people know him from Schitt's Creek. He's in other things too, but everyone knows him as Ted from Schitt's Creek. Basically, the main premise is we're following Lacey Chabert, and once again, Chabert, once again in a snowy town, cottage town kind of thing, whatever. She runs a shop because that's what all fucking Hallmark movies are. And this lady gives her this, and I'm paraphrasing, I could be going kind of totally wrong about this because it's so not memorable. They give her this scarf, and she goes and puts the scarf on this hot snowman sculpture outside because nothing says thank you for the gift, and I'm just gonna dump this on a snow sculpture outside and just fucking go on with my day. But basically, this makes the snowman come to life and becomes Dustin Milligan. And he's basically this naked, ripped as shit snowman who has the mind of a baby, a mind of a child. And we're supposed to buy this whole fucking relationship through this movie of this woman wanting to be with this guy who has the like mindset of a 3-year-old. But yet throughout the movie, it keeps breaking its own rules because he doesn't know how food works. He doesn't know how clothes works, but yet he knows how to mess with the internet. He knows how to be a handyman, but he doesn't know how to put clothes on. It's like, make the movie make sense, guys. And so this movie is it's just so fucking stupid. And this is what most 99% of these Hallmark movies are. Except I don't think a lot of them have a hot snowman coming to life and the woman wanting to bone the hot snowman. So I'll give Hallmark that credit. Usually it's the lumberjack or the guy that they were in love with during high school, not the hot snow sculpture coming to life and I want to bone him, he has a brain of a 3-year-old. But Hot Frosty's that movie. And what's funny is it's actually gotten decent scores on Rotten Tomato and stuff. And so I don't know what everyone else was watching, but this movie is so stupid.
I felt like people that are really into Hallmark movies are just forgiving of anything in movies like that. They just want.
It's like, all you gotta do is just turn your brain off. Okay, cool, but she basically wants to bone a 3-year-old, like, and even then, that's being generous, and then they just keep breaking the rules throughout the whole movie because like, okay, he's very, very new. He doesn't know how to do shit. Okay, that's the way we're going with. It's creepy, but okay. And then he goes and does something. It's like, wait, he doesn't know how to do this, but he knows how to do this? Now he's doing... How does he know how to do this shit, but not the most basic functions like eating food? Someone explain this to me. And it's just, yeah, it's so fucking dumb.
Yeah, I did not watch this. This is actually one I was going to watch, basically because of him and Lacey Chabert, because I like her. I mean, I don't watch the Hallmark movie she's done, but I've always liked her.
It's also got like Craig Robinson
to watch
in it.
Like the first couple days it was out, and by the time I was gonna have time to watch it, I had heard enough from people that I'm like, no, I'm good.
Yeah, it doesn't have necessarily a bad cast of people in it. Like, there's people in there, you're like, oh, and then it's like, oh, if this is what you're resorting to now, did your career go down? It's like, oh, that sucks. I feel bad for you now that you're in this movie. But anyway, what was your next one?
My number 4, I guess we're on, is honestly the one I remember the least about. So I'm going to make this brief. This is The Watchers, from Ishana Night Shyamalan, because we found out that, M. Night Shyamalan's one daughter can't act in Trap, and now we found out that this one can't direct. I want to say she wrote it too. Yes, she did.
So little Miss Shyamalama Ding Dong.
Yes. And in true Shyamalan's fashion, the trailers at least looked intriguing. I wouldn't say they looked great, but I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm intrigued. I'll check it out. Let's see what this has to it. And it was, I remember just being bored to death by it. I remember it, just kind of going on. And then at the end of it, when they started introducing fairies and things, you're like, what the fuck is going on with this movie? And I don't remember much about it. I remember Dakota being kind of disappointed by Dakota Fanning, which actually the last couple of times I've seen her, it's like, because we loved her in like her kid roles. And then she's one of those who like never really did. She hasn't done a whole lot in like her adult career. I mean, she popped up in like the Equalizer 3. I'm like, oh, she's reuniting with Denzel Washington. This would be awesome. It's like she's this small part, and she kind of feels like she's only shoved in there so people will be like, oh, look, reunion. And she didn't impress me there. She doesn't impress me much here. The rest of the cast doesn't do much either. This is just one of the worst movies I saw from what I remember, but I don't remember much.
Yeah, I agree. She really hasn't done much. And it could just be because, you can chalk it up to like kind of like even with, Emma Watson, where it's like, oh yeah, after Harry Potter ended, she went, to college. So we didn't see her around, but she would still go and do like Beauty and the Beast or Perks of Being a Wallflower. It's like, oh, you still see her in things. Dakota Fanning, it's like, she like stopped and then you didn't see her for like 10 years. And now she's starting to do stuff, but none of the stuff's good. Her sister is actually doing the more intriguing stuff. Not necessarily blowing her away in terms of acting ability, but at least it's like getting herself out there and doing different things. I don't know what Dakota's doing. I remember
recently, and it's like after, like, I don't know what her last like notable movie was. I didn't realize she was in the Twilight movies.
Wasn't she also in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Wasn't she one of the Manson girls?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. After the Twilight movies, which I didn't even know she was in, she like was a lot of straight to video stuff. And then yeah, she showed up in Ocean's 8 apparently in a small part, and then Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and then Equalizer 3 and Watchers. So she really has not done much for a long time now.
Yeah, this is another one of those I was going to check out or potentially watch, and then you were like, "Don't."
Yeah.
You want me to tell you the twist? Here's the twist. I was like, "Oh, yeah, that sounds like a Shyamalan movie. That sounds fucking dumb." Okay, moving on. My number 4 is a movie that I have actively bashed at every chance that I've had throughout the year. So I'm not going to try and take up too much time because I've said more than I've wanted to say about this goddamn movie. This is a movie that was supposed to have a trilogy in 1 year, but it's so bad they pushed the other 2 to next year. I'll be shocked if the third one even comes out. And that's Strangers Chapter 1. The Strangers was a solid horror film. Strangers Prey at Night was one of the worst films of the year when it came out. Strangers Chapter 1 picks up that ball that Prey at Night fumbled and basically, once again, fumbled it into the back of the end zone and didn't realize that that's not how you score a touchdown. This movie is so fucking stupid. It hits every horror cliche like a fucking bingo card. Oh no, here's 2 pretentious douchebags who are supposed to be the protagonists, but you don't really like any of them other than it's attractive girl 1 and attractive guy 2. And they're having very horrible dialogue going into a small town when, oh no, they have car trouble. They go into a small town and then immediately everyone in that town just starts giving them the meanest, dirtiest looks like they just, went and pissed on everyone's food. These people just walked into the diner. They haven't done anything, and yet everyone's like, fuck your mother. And it's like, what? Why? Like, that's how much hatred that they're giving. It's like, all they did was walk into the diner. They haven't done anything wrong. Then, of course, you run into the whole deal of, oh,
is
your
that
car.
Line from the movie? Fuck your mother.
No, it's just,
okay.
it's just, but it's like you run into this situation. Oh, your car's busted. I don't have the part. You're gonna have to stay overnight until it comes here. And then, of course, that they get to the cabin, and then we start getting the Strangers. And you keep thinking that, oh, this is the Strangers Chapter 1. This is probably a prequel. We're probably going to get introduced to the actual characters that are playing. I don't remember the fucking names of the stranger characters, but we're going to figure out who they are and why they decided to do this. No, this is just the Strangers done again. It doesn't bring anything new. It basically is a rinse and repeat of the first film, but it was done way better in the first film. And once again, it ends in a cliffhanger because there's supposed to be Chapter 2 coming out. I don't give a flying fuck. I don't want to watch Chapter 2 because this movie did absolutely nothing to make this movie remotely watchable. And the worst part about it is there's so many times in this movie that the girl could have gotten away, but just chose to just stay there and get mauled by these people. And I'm sorry, I don't think a second film of her doing the same stupid shit is going to win me the fuck over. I hate this franchise with every fiber of my being. I don't get the concept of what everyone says. Now, granted, and I will say this, even the beginning of the movie, it goes, this is one of the, or every, it's like one of those, like, and I know I'm not saying the exact thing right, but it's like every 10 seconds a violent murder or a violent attack happens in the United States. Since you've been reading this sentence, 12 of them have happened. This is one of the most brutal. Maybe by the end of Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, it'll be the most brutal, but from what we've gotten in Chapter 1, I've seen worse shit on Chicago PD, Chicago Fire, pretty much any of the Chicago shows, NYPD Blue, Law and Order. Throw any cop show on regular broadcast TV, and they've done worse there than what this fucking first film did. But yeah, Strangers Chapter 1's dog shit.
Another one I had planned to see but didn't because I heard nothing good about it. And I knew it was a reboot. I knew it wasn't like a prequel because they were starting the whole thing over. But yeah, they shot all 3 of them together in like 2022, and they were going to release them all like a month or 2 apart from each other. And it's like, this is why you don't invest all that money in filming 3 movies before you know if the first one's going to be liked, because I will have a hard time believing the other 2 are coming out to theaters. I think they will get dumped straight onto, VOD on, Fandango and iTunes and all that shit. if they ever come out at this point. Who knows?
And it'd be one thing if it was just me that hated it, because I just don't get it. But no,
I didn't hear anybody.
No one liked this. So why do you think you're going to release the second and third one?
Even the original Strangers very quickly devolves into just jump scare of the movie. But there are people that like that. They're like, oh, they just go to the movies to be scared, and that's fine for them. And I didn't hate it. It's fine for what it was. So it's like you go into this one with a pretty low bar you got to clear, and everybody still hated it. It must be horrible.
It's I had somewhat of a hope to it because the main girl was from Riverdale, and I don't dislike her as an actress, but yeah, she brought nothing to this role. And I don't want to necessarily blame her. I want to kind of blame the script and the director, because I know she's capable of more than what she did in this movie. It was more of a direction and script problem than her as an actress. But yeah.
Yeah, and I'm disappointed because I kind of was hoping this would be a kind of a comeback for Rennie Harlan, because I mean he did things like Die Hard 2 and movies.
That's the part that makes no goddamn sense. Is why he
does One Kiss Goodnight. He's done other stuff, and then he kind of disappeared and went back to do films in wherever he's from, Germany maybe. And then he was like, oh, now he's finally come back. He's going to make some more, theatrically released feature films, and it's like, nope, not even starting off with this.
That is the most crazy, probably one of the most crazy stat of this year, is that Rennie Harlan came back to do this. This makes no goddamn sense.
Yeah. It's like if Daniel Day-Lewis decided to unretire to come back and do the 4:30 movie or something. What the fuck? Like, come on. Right.
I would pick a worse movie, but
it'd be more interesting then. I'll give you that.
It would be.
All right, my next one. Guess what, folks? It's a horror movie.
That was luckily my last horror film, by the way. So yeah. I'm done.
So a couple of years ago, Russell Crowe made a movie called The Pope's Exorcist.
Oh, okay.
And that movie was kind of fucking awesome. Because, I mean, the story was okay. And it had some cool effects. It had some good scares to it. But Russell Crowe was sinking his teeth into that role. He was having fun. And I kind of loved the character he made. He was a kind of, he wasn't like being a broadly comedic character, but he was definitely fucking fun to watch. And I would love to see more of that. But he decided to put out another movie this year called The Exorcism. No, it's just the most bland title you could possibly think of.
And confused us to hell. Because we're like, is this the sequel? Are we getting a sequel this soon? No.
It was like a year ago. And like, okay, he's in another movie, Exorcist, and he plays this priest guy. And the whole premise of it was, this is another one where the premise is what drove me to go actually see this, because it's the idea of like, they're filming a movie about an exorcist. They're basically filming The Exorcist. It's kind of the behind the scenes story of that. But there's an actual possession is happening on set, and it's kind of taking over, and he's got to try and fight it. They have these other priests that get involved. And so I'm like, okay, this could be an interesting movie. It's got a supporting cast. It's got, Sam Worthington is in one scene with a couple scenes, but Adam Goldberg's in it, Adrian Pasdar, David Hyde Pierce, almost unrecognizable from his like Frasier days. So it's got, a decent cast to it of people like, not big names, but people you've seen and stuff. And it's got Russell Crowe, and this one got theatrical release, and he's had a lot of stuff go straight to video in the past, 5-10 years. So it's like, this one must at least be decent to be releasable into theaters. But man, this was super disappointing. This one it wasn't scary. It was slower than it should have been. They had this whole relationship with him and his daughter that you don't really care about. And she's supposed to be like, the big smart one of the whole movie. And you're just like, you kind of want to see her die just because she's kind of obnoxious and annoying. And Russell Crowe, I wouldn't say he's doing a bad job of acting. I think it's more in the writing of the character, but I really would have preferred to see him as the fun version, from Pope's Exorcist, because this one is just kind of, it was just so bland and boring.
Okay, I have to ask this because obviously I didn't watch this because I heard how bad it was. So, do they do something like Evil Dead where they're shooting it on set and they read something and that's what caused the exorcism to like happen, or was it just random happenstance?
To be perfectly honest, I don't remember. I don't remember any specific thing happening on set.
To me, that's
I want
to
say there's something that had followed somebody. Like I want to say it's something like it followed him from a previous occurrence or something like that. But I honestly don't remember.
Because to me, that's the most intriguing part of this film is that they're shooting in like an Exorcist movie how did it get onto the set? How did it infect the set? That's what I'm intrigued by. And apparently, yeah, it didn't sound like that was good enough.
Go to
That's
Wikipedia, I guess, because you don't want to bother watching the movie.
Oh yeah, I'll if I remember to, I'll Wikipedia it. But that was my whole thing, was how did it start?
Yeah.
My number 3 is the movie that Brian mentioned earlier. It was the movie that he couldn't make it through 30 minutes of, but I sat through the whole goddamn thing. Now I will preface this. In terms of worst film of the year that I've seen, this is probably the worst movie. Why is it at my number 3 and not my number 1? Because number 2 and number 1 were big budget pieces of shit that knew better, should not have had the fuck ups that they had. And because of the egregiousness that those two movies had, that is why they're 1 and number 2. This was a Netflix film. You knew what you were coming into with it. I think you and I both knew what we were walking into when we started watching this, and we actively knew this was going to be bad. Those two movies had no business being bad. This one did. That's why it's at my number 3, and that is Trigger Warning.
Oh, that's what I was talking about. I tapped out of that one too.
What are you talking about then?
The Uglies.
Oh, I never watched it.
Yeah, I watched half an hour and tapped out of that one.
Kimberly watched it and she fucking hated it.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about Trigger, because you quit on Trigger Warning 30 minutes in.
Yeah, I was just bored by it.
No, I was never gonna watch Uglies. Are you high? I can't talk about the movie without giggling because of how stupid it is.
And I will say this just to preface because you're gonna discuss Trigger Warning. I have not seen it except for the beginning of it. But for me to turn off a movie with Jessica Alba in it,
yeah,
it's got to be bad.
Yeah, Jessica Alba, who we both have, I think, loved since her like Idle Hands days. This is her basically coming back to. It's not that she hasn't been acting, because she has been, but this is basically her coming back to like, I'm a badass, and she's like this. It's honest. You know what it is? It's basically Jessica Alba's version of Walking Tall. That's honestly the best way I could describe this movie. It's just basically The Rock's Walking Tall with Jessica Alba. Except it lacks any good acting, lacks any good action, lacks any interesting story. It's about 20 minutes too long, and even then that would put it at under 80 minutes if I did that. It's got laughably bad like dialogue. It's just utterly awful. It really is so damn bad. And I remember I was watching this and I was like, yeah, I'm watching Trigger Warning. And Brian's like, oh yeah, dude, once I hit the 30-minute mark, I just gave up. I go, I'm at the 30-minute mark right now. He goes, oh yeah, get ready to turn it off. I'm like, nope, I'm going to power through just because you said I wouldn't even make it. And about an hour, 10 minutes later, I was like, I wish I turned that off. Because I was like, I can't get that hour 10 back. But it's like one of those things where it's like, even if you watched the trailer, you knew this wasn't going to be good, but we watched it because of Jessica Alba. That's the whole reason why we did. So can we really blame them? Yes, we can blame them because they made the fucking movie. But it's like, we kind of had a feeling what we were going to walk into. We were just hoping that we were going to get like a nobody situation where it was like, you know what? This actually is really fucking good, and we need to talk about this with people. No, we're talking about it now in the worst possible way.
Well, that's just it. Is with movies like that, like you say, you know what you're getting into. It's like, well, that's just it. It's like, that, this isn't going to be, Oscar entertainment. But you still go in hopeful. I think we like to try to give movies a chance, hoping that they're good. I never watch a movie hoping it sucks. So we see these obscure movies.
I think there was one movie this year we both went into hoping it sucked, and it did.
Okay, that one, yeah. But whenever we pick up a streaming movie that like maybe we don't know a whole lot about, or these VOD movies that we see where we don't know anything more than basically the cast and the premise, we go in hoping that it's going to be good. And so you go in with Jessica Alba, and it's a straight to streaming thing. It's Trigger Warning. So you're like, but I still hope it'll be good. Maybe it'll be a great action, because every once in a while we find those gems that are just awesome movies that like people didn't pay attention to. But then problem is 80% of the time it's this. So.
Yeah, it's few and far between, and it's been a while since we got to a good one. But yeah, Trigger Warning. Brian tapped out, I did not, and you guys should have tapped out.
Yeah, and tap out of the Uglies too, because I did.
What's your number 2?
My number 2, I think, is your number 1. So I'm going to talk about my other one first. Would I be right in that?
If it's the one I said that we both wanted to fail, then yes.
Yeah. Okay. So my number 1, but I'm going to talk about it now, is Long Legs. Long Legs is the worst movie.
The worst movie of the year
I've seen this year.
It's not the worst movie of the year
because it's boring as shit. It has a horrible performance by Micah Monroe, who's acting like she's a fucking alien, but she's not. It has an all-time worst performance for Nicolas Cage, who
not even remotely close.
Who's trying to go over the top Nick Cage, but not in a fun way, in a fucking obnoxious, annoying way. Unnecessary prosthetics that they put on him. There's no reason he has to look like this, and it just makes him look stupid. It just looks like Nick Cage in prosthetics. The ending completely takes a left turn from the whole rest of the movie, and that ruins anybody who did like the movie. I'm surprised if that didn't turn them off from it, because it's like, okay, this makes no fucking sense. And there's just nothing redeeming about this movie. And the other movie, we'll talk about, but I at least enjoyed watching that movie on some level. But this one was just fucking ass.
God, your hate for this movie. I didn't think it would go number 1 worst movie of the year hate, but all right.
I will say it definitely would be my worst of list, no matter what. But I think that my hatred of this movie is amplified by the people who like invoke the names of like Seven and Silence of the Lambs. Like, fuck you. This doesn't belong in the same conversation as that movie.
I'm almost excited now for when we get to the awards for most overrated film of the year, because I know this is your front runner, and my front runner is the one I watched the other night. I want to say mine has the tip of the hand because people are talking about Best Picture and Oscar wins for my movie. Yours is not getting that, so that's going to be
that. I wouldn't put that on my overrated list, but we'll have to argue about
it. It is overrated as shit. And I'm not telling you guys. You guys just have to wait.
Number 1 overrated is like one of your favorite of the year, so we won't get into that.
Oh God, okay, that's gonna be a fun conversation. But yeah, if you guys want to hear my thoughts,
so what's your
if you guys want to hear my thoughts on Long Legs, watch the most disappointing episode. We talk about it on there as well. But yeah, my number 2. I'm so glad I did not see this in theaters. I had to watch this kind of in parts. I wanted to stop watching it, but I knew that this movie was so bad that I had to make myself finish it so that way I could have it on this list. Because I was like, if I stop watching it now, then I can't in good conscience put this on my list. That's Megalopolis.
Oh, I did not see that. I'm sure this would be a contender for top 3 for me easily.
This steaming pile of dog shit of a movie. My God. Francis Ford Coppola. You put was it $1 million? How much money did he put into this for himself?
Oh,
because he had
10 or 30 million or something.
He had to put a lot of his money in to make this film. Dude, I don't do drugs, but whatever you were smoking that made you invest that much money into this film.
I kind of wanted to self-funded this movie with $120 million of his own money.
Give me whatever you're smoking, because I want to know whatever you're smoking that made you think that this was worth that much has got to be the best shit ever. It's got to. You have. Let me just run through the cast of this real quick. Adam Driver, fantastic. Giancarlo Esposito, fantastic. Natalie Emmanuel, you love.
I did not see a movie with Natalie Emmanuel in it. That's how bad this is.
Yeah. Aubrey Plaza, great. Shia LaBeouf, I love him. John Voight, Lawrence Fishburne, Jason Schwartzman. The list goes fucking on and on of people in this movie that are great, confident actors. This is the most incompetent, just straight up fucking stupid ass movie I have ever seen. This is like if, oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. The Room. Tommy Wiseau. This is like if you gave Tommy Wiseau $200 million and gave him this cast, Megalopolis is what he would have made. This is Tommy Wiseau. It's not Francis Ford Coppola. I have a hard time believing that Francis Ford Coppola did this. I think Tommy Wiseau kidnapped Francis Ford Coppola and made Megalopolis, because The dialogue reads like The Room. No, the only person that knows what movie they're in this is Aubrey Plaza, and even then, she's not great in this movie, and we love her and everything. But she seems to be the only one who actually consciously kind of thinks that she understands what's going on in this movie. Adam Driver, he had to have been smoking whatever Francis Ford Coppola was smoking, because he's all over the place in this.
Well,
This
I've always
movie,
considered him an overrated, pretentious actor, except when he's doing comedies.
I was going to say, when he's doing comedy, we love him. It's hard to even explain what this movie is. The best thing I can do for anyone is save them the time from watching this and just go watch the honest trailer and pitch meeting of this movie. You'll get everything you need out of it. And it will basically explain what the fuck I'm trying to explain here. This and my number one, aka your number two, they're like right here, because I don't hate this movie. This movie's just so dumb that I'm just like, is this a joke? Am I being pranked? Like, is this movie 43? Did you guys actively go out of your way to do this intentionally? Because I felt like this was doing it. Whereas my number one and your number two, everyone who's done that movie should be fired. This was like, I felt like Francis Ford Coppola, kind of like Todd Phillips did with Joker, is like he wanted to say fuck you to Hollywood. Let me show you how bad I can fuck shit up.
Well, two things. One, don't besmirch the name movie 43 like that. Movie 43 is
I'm talking about a movie that is written so shitty that everyone's in on the joke.
Right.
Yes.
But two, this movie is a case for studio interference. When people say, oh, directors should just be allowed to make their vision and the way they want to make a movie with nobody telling them what to do, nobody giving them notes or nobody things like that. It's like, no studio wanted to fund this movie. So he says, you know what? I'm going to do it all myself. That way nobody can interfere. Nobody can tell me what to do. I'll make the movie that I see in my head. And this is what he came up with no studio interference or nobody helping to guide him or edit him or tell him no or give him some feedback. It's like, no, he's just going to make the movie he wanted in his head. And this is what he came up with. This is what he wanted his career to build to eventually. Yeah.
There's literally a line in the movie where John Voight goes, hey, have a look at this boner. Mm-hmm. It's literally a fucking line of dialogue in this goddamn movie. It's so fucking stupid.
Yeah, all I've seen of it is the pitch meeting and the
honest trailer.
It's like, yeah, that's enough for me.
You said you had to watch 100 Beavers 30-minute increments because you just got.
Yep. Yeah.
This was like 10-15 minutes, and then I had to pause it, go like look at Facebook, go do something, and then like kind of like that SpongeBob thing, like, all right, let's go back into this. And it's just like
now did you think it was going to get better, or why
no, I within the first 15 minutes, I was like, oh my God, this is horrific. I have to finish this so I can truly put this on my worst list. It was one of those things where it's like, if this thing turns itself around and makes itself interesting and good, this thing's going to shoot all the way up to my best of. Guess what? It fucking didn't. I was like, part of me was like, I don't know if I want this to succeed or if I just want this to continue to fail. It got so laughably bad that I was kind of enjoying laughing at it, but for all the wrong reasons. I want to see I want to talk to someone who actually I might call them out here real quick. Is there anyone on my Letterboxd that actually gave this a good score?
Oh, I'm sure some of the pretentious Coppola dick suckers did.
Yes, someone gave this 5 stars. Someone gave this 4.5 stars. Another person gave it 4 stars. I would love.
Sarcastic.
What's that? Oh no, these are not sarcastic people. You know these people. I would love to have a conversation with these people and have them explain to me why they think this movie is a 4.5, 5-star film, because y'all are high as fuck. Anyway, we go to my number one, Brian's number 2 worst film of 2024. and that's Madam Web. And Brian and I both want to preface this. If there's anyone that comes to us telling us that Kraven the fucking Hunter is worse than Madam Web, I will have to hold back from wanting to slap you. Because Kraven the Hunter is nowhere near as bad as Madam Web. And if you say that, it's because you wanted to look at Sydney Sweeney and all the girls in that, where you didn't want to look at Aaron Taylor Johnson's like 8 abs. Because that would be the only reasoning that you would consider Madam Web better than Kraven the Hunter. But Madam Web, and I said this, like I said, with Megapolis, everyone who worked on this movie, who watched this film countless times, editing it and putting shit together for this, and basically wrapped it up in a little bow saying, it's done, it's complete, it's perfect. Y'all deserve to be fired and never work in Hollywood again. Because there is so much shit wrong in this movie with the bad ADR, the bad CGI, the bad script, the piss poor acting, just a bad plot all put together. And y'all thought that this was a competent film that was gonna make you millions. The fucking studio head, oh, this movie only bombed because of the fucking credits. No, this movie bombed because it was fucking horseshit.
When I love how he uses in that same interview where he uses as evidence, is like, well, look, once it hit Netflix, it was a huge hit. And like, no, people were watching it to see the train wreck for how much it was, and to watch it and make fun of it with their friends while sitting at home drunk because they can watch it now for free.
It's a hate watch.
Yes.
It's no different. It's no different than when everyone was doing. Now, granted, you liked it when they were doing this with Morbius, and then the studio heads were like, "Oh, everyone likes it. Let's put it back in theaters." No, you dumb shit. That's not what they were watching it to make fun of it. They weren't watching it to go get paid to watch it. It's.
And I've said it before. I'll say it again. Based on this movie, you all owe Morbius an apology. This is a hell. This is
based on this movie. Yes, we owe Morbius an apology, but Morbius is still like the third worst one out of like 6 of these. But there's not one redeeming quality in this movie. You falsely advertise superhero Spider-Women. They only show up in a dream sequence. You cast Adam Scott as Uncle Ben, and he serves no purpose in this fucking film. The villain is easily one of the worst goddamn villains I've seen ever.
And completely redubbed.
And not redubbed in the worst fucking ADR. Like, yes, Kraven the Hunter's got really bad ADR. This ADR is laughably bad. You're watching a Japanese Godzilla film whenever this guy's on screen, because the words that are coming out of his mouth are not the words you're hearing on screen. Dakota Johnson is giving the most Dakota Johnson type performance in this film. They could have gone, because I remember when this trailer came out, you and I both went, "Oh, what the fuck?" And we both said if they went full like Final Destination with this, it could save it. But even then, they didn't fucking go all
if it
the
went
way.
the Final Destination route, that could have saved it. Or if it leaned more onto, because like the 3 girls, like Sydney Sweeney, I'm getting a little tired of her, and she's not turning out to be a great actress. But I was curious about her, and I like Isabella Merced, and the other one, Celeste O'Connor. I think she's from
Celeste O'Connor. Yeah,
it's like I was like, if they featured them more, like when I saw they were going to be the Spider Woman team, like okay, maybe this could be a redeeming factor for it too. But that, like you said, was false advertising. So
the
only reason this is 2 and not 1 for me is because this is a movie that I can actually see having
you
fun
actively just visibly hate
making fun of it, poking about, like just mocking it, doing that Mystery Science Theater thing to it. I can see this at least being enjoyable on a holy shit, this is awful, like The Room. But whereas my number 1 is just, that wouldn't even be a fun way to watch it. But this one, yes, is absolutely not a good movie. The only reason it's not my number 1 is because you can have fun making fun of it. So
they're just the shit they do wrong in this. It's criminal. It is criminal. Hollywood criminal. It's one thing when you let like indie movies get away with this shit, or Netflix movies get away with this shit, because they're Netflix movies or indies movies. They're usually not done by like a top tier team or stuff like that. These are people breaking into the business. They're allowed to make these mistakes. This is a fucking Sony Marvel film. And I'm not trying to put them on the pedestal that they should not ever have mistakes, because they can fuck up. We've seen them fuck up. Eternals. But that was the MCU. But the level of fuck ups that you guys do, it's criminal. No, none of you should ever work in Hollywood again.
What shocks me is that they released this movie and thinking it was good, whereas Kraven the Hunter, they're like, oh no, we got to keep pushing this back, and it's like, we're like, so that one wasn't ready, but this one you thought was ready to be.
This movie needed another 2 years of redos, reshoots, or
unless they're just my only thought is that they're like, maybe we can fix this one. This one's dog shit. Let's just get it off the table.
You guys, granted, not the same people, so I'm not saying that these particular people, but y'all canceled Batgirl because you deemed it unreleasable, yet you guys thought Madam fucking Web was. Granted, like I said, not the same people who ran it, different studio.
And that movie might very well have been awful, but still, it's the principle.
Yeah, I'm not saying that Batgirl would have been great, but you thought this was good. I can only imagine what you guys thought was worse with Batgirl. Could it have been worse? Because at this state, I think we need to see Batgirl and give it a shot. I would like to see what they did with that, because if you thought this was good, I got to see what you guys thought was not good. But anyway, guys, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode of our worst films of 2024. Let us know in the comments below, what were your worst films of 2024? Did we mention them here? Are you guys mad about Longlegs being on the list? Let Brian know that in the comments. Also out right now, we got our very Movie Crusaders Christmas episode where we go over our basically topics of Christmas movies through there, give you guys some great recommendations to watch. I know we're past Christmas and we're into 2025, but I'm still going to plug it. Also, like I said, our most disappointed and most surprising films of 2024 are out right now. And now we are coming down to the main event, the best films of 2024. I know there's some movies on my list that Brian's not going to like, and I'm sure there's going to be movies on Brian's list that I'm not going to like, but it's our best, and we're going to talk about them the way we are, and we hope you guys tune in for that. Like I said, let us know in the comments what were your worst films of 2024, and be back here tomorrow for the best films of 2024. I'm Sean Waskrug. That is Brian Michaels. We're the Movie Crusaders, and until next time, in case we don't see you, go watch some movies and go have some fun.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.